We are red, red is go.
Okay, good evening and welcome to the Thursday, September 26th, 2019 Selectmen's meeting. So I'll stand and say the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we got the minutes of September 19th.
On page 2, Selectmen's reports, Selectman Dawson reported sewer commission would be doing pipe blasting. I have been calling it that, but it's actually pipe bursting. So we should put
I
the
think the letter
correct.
you sent out said pipe blasting too.
You know, I looked at it and I know it's pipe bursting and that's what I saw.
Yeah, it's supposed to be pipe bursting. And I'm still calling it blasting.
That's another operation. They have multiple ways of doing it.
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
I have one more. I'm sorry.
No need, there would be
I haven't
discussion
finished.
anyway,
Oh.
so.
You're right.
That's why I figured I'd throw it out there.
You're right.
I'll wait, go ahead.
Under that same report, I believe I asked permission of the selectmen for Rowell's to use the staging area, the vacant lot, and along Maple Court.
Yes.
Could we please add that in there? Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
So, Rouse is looking for staging area to store piping along Maple Court. Selectman Dawson asked for approval on that?
I asked the board if it would be all right if Rowell's shared the vacant lot with the water district and use that section along Maple Court. And Pat, they felt there wouldn't be any damage to the grass. I just want you to do it because it would just be pipe on Maple Court.
They did say no damage to the grass, no equipment or anything, so.
I was fine with,
If
I was fine with that. You know that that's been my baby for
Yes, I
35
do.
years.
And, you know, when I was
No
standing
matter
there,
what, I'll
I
fix it,
looked
so
up
it
and
doesn't
does
matter.
look nice.
They tear up the lawns all regrade and seed.
So
It was just
what
kind of
changes?
consensus.
So it was consensus?
It was, you know.
Yeah, we all agreed to it.
Yeah,
I know we
we
did.
all did, yeah.
I don't remember if there was an exact motion.
There was a lot more talk about damaging the grass and
Yeah,
refurbishing the vacant lot.
So I have an issue on the third paragraph on page 3, when Jeannie spoke about DOT announcing the application for the section 5310 capital projects, which is the senior center, which is a bus for a vehicle for the senior center. It says there would need to be $6,000 budgeted for this program match, and I think that we got into a little bit more information than we kind of made an example. The federal funds were 85.5%. The state was,
Wasn't
The
it
state was
85,
7.5,
7.5, 7.5?
7.5.
Yeah.
local is 7.5, but we did not know the amount of what the vehicle cost yet, so we don't know what we need to put in the budget for the line item, right?
And yes and no, because when I looked at the grant application, the highest number they had was $70,000. So I went to the high side and said, that's, you know, if we're doing 7.5, if that's our match at the local level, it's like 5,500 plus, so I just rounded it up to 6. That assumes that you go to the high side of whatever that vehicle it is. It could be lower, but that would be the highs. You wouldn't know that until
We're ready to.
what you're asking for.
So given that explanation, could we at least put in that,
As an example?
right?
yeah, but that wasn't part of this meeting.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah,
part of
the-
this
the-
meeting.
no, it
No.
That
was.
whole $70,000 thing, this is the first
No,
time.
that
No.
was, it was explained last week,
Yeah.
that with the 70,000, that's how we came up with the 6,000.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't certain that the 70,000 that Jeannie explained last week was a
Hard.
hard number.
That was the highest number.
Right. So we went with that, so what Jeannie's explaining to us now is that she
That
went.
part I get.
Right. So it was discussed last week, so,
I remember talking about 90,000. But there you go.
So I could put you could put something in there for the conversation, assuming the highest, the highest cost, you'd be looking at budgeting approximately 6,000 for the local match.
that would work,
Yeah.
right.
Page 3, last paragraph. You ready?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I was just being
Oh, thank
patient.
you.
On page 3, the last paragraph, I believe I had commented that we should come up with a form for the housing inspection, so when there are violations, you can check off, is it a code enforcement officer, health officer, or fire?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of Thursday, September 19th, 2019 as corrected.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? So moved, unanimous. Next thing we have is Tim.
I also have two couple of sets of the designs to look at. I looked in the past. I didn't print the file total just because of the amount of color. So first things first, on my report I wanted to bring to your attention some building items. So the first thing is that the civil engineer through the architect has completed the application for driveway permit for two cut-ins, one of which is already there, but two driveway entrances. And they are marked and they're attached to my report. And so this requires a signature of the landowner. There is only one place because it's the state's form. So however you want to do it, if you want to just all sign it or nominate someone to sign it, it's up to you, but that should be signed. If not tonight, very soon.
Motion that the chair sign it.
Second.
All those in favor? Say
Yes.
aye.
Plan to vote.
I have a good copy if you want to use that one.
So moved.
It's down the bottom left. Signature of landowner. A second item is regarding the windows. So on Monday evening, the Police Building Study Committee reviewed a recommendation from the police department as to windows. And this was part of a larger discussion on intrusion detection. Would the windows open? Was there a need to have them open? Were they going to be single hung, double hung? With the HVAC system that we're going to have in this building, it was determined that the windows did not need to be open. That was a recommendation from the police department. And so the Police Building Study Committee voted on it, and they approved that, and so they sent that through to the Board of Selectmen. So a question for you that I have, so I'm communicating this, but a question I have is, there are going to be a lot of little things like this, if you will, decisions that are going to have to be made in terms of being able to come up with pricing for the building. In fact, I believe the architect is, I haven't gone through it in great detail, but late this afternoon the architect had sent through a list of questions that will have to be answered by the town. As the owner's representative, many of these are for the PD. A number of them have to do with furniture and fixtures. But there are going to be many, many, minor decisions that will have to be made in order to get decent pricing, good pricing back. So the question I have for the board is really one of expectations too, is that if all of these decisions will go to the Police Building Committee for a vote and then come before the Selectmen for a vote, it's going to be a very cumbersome process, and it may put us really in a bad spot time-wise. That's just my personal opinion. So I didn't know how the board felt about that.
Could they not, like, if there were questions, as you said, could they not have sent them out to the Board of Selectmen for opinion and comment?
Well, this is something we just received this afternoon. So the Police Building Committee hasn't seen it yet.
No, we haven't. We meet on Mondays, so why wouldn't we talk about it and then bring it to the board on Thursdays? I don't get it.
Well, and
So we talked
Sure.
about windows, and here's windows being decided on with the Board of Selectmen on Thursday, just a few days later. So I don't,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
well, I guess what I'm anticipating is that they're going to be. This is just one decision. It's somewhat encompassing. Doors will be the same sort of decision, but as you get into more and more nitty gritty, is the expectation of the board that on each and every one of these, as it gets down to what type of lockers, we're going to have for dispatch, or are we going to try to repurpose something? You know, all those types of kind of in the weeds decisions.
My understanding that they were going to come together and create a package and then go over it with us,
Okay.
not each individual thing, is that?
Okay,
Right.
No.
all right,
I
good.
mean,
Well, this was for my benefit.
We want them
No
to do
one-
their best and be frugal.
No
and
one asked me
practical.
to bring this up. It's just
Yeah.
as I was writing this up, it dawned on me, and I thought, well, it might be good just to have this discussion, just so that I'm clear,
Mm.
and that you know, I understand how the board wants to proceed from this vantage point.
Everybody else
Okay.
good with that?
I am.
So then I would presume that you would vote on the recommendation from the Police Building Study Committee on fixed windows.
I have a question. If they are going to have fixed windows and rely just on the air conditioning, the HVAC system, are they going to provide a maintenance program for that system to prevent Legionnaire's disease and other things that can be spread around through that kind of system, you know, where there is no... So, the International Building Code prefers that buildings be built with natural ventilation. I'm sure they know this, but there is a clause that accepts mechanical ventilation. But the preferred ventilation is through natural means. So I assume they are going to provide some kind of maintenance schedule for the system they plan to install?
I would imagine. I don't know.
We
but I
talked
I would
about
bring it
that.
up when we
took a note.
get to that part.
It would make sense. It would certainly make sense, yeah.
There was some talk about that,
Oh, good.
as far as the HVAC and the engineering of the HVAC and the
Has to be
different zones for
fixed.
the HVAC,
Yeah,
and how it affects the climate and the climate changes and things like that, and maintenance. This was maybe a month and a half ago or so, with the engineer, when Milestone first came on board with Gary. So now we have to readdress it, and that's a good point. That's an excellent point to bring up.
Yeah. The company that installs it should actually provide that.
Right.
So can we go back a minute? I know I think I heard all of you say yes in terms of Tim's first question, does that require a vote, or can we just note that as consensus?
Consensus, I think we're
I-
going to look
I'm
at the whole
fine.
package in the end. And
With that condition that there's a maintenance.
What, no, I'm not talking about the
No,
window.
she's
no,
saying
just-
the nitty-gritty, you know, is this
Oh, the
furniture,
nitty-gritty, yes.
lockers, and things like that.
So my vote is yes, I agree with
Consensus
John.
here, you good with that?
Yeah, be nice to get some ballpark pricing at some point.
We're getting that soon.
But
October,
But
second
your
week in
expectation is that someone's going to come to you with a whole packet of different things.
We're going to have a sit down and
And you're going to go through them and say yes, yes.
That's what the agreement was.
Windows, doors, HVAC, I mean, we can hit a bunch of those
Well, you have
things.
windows right here.
I'd make a motion to go with the fixed windows.
With maintenance program?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Second.
So that was part of your motion with the...
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
good.
I want nice windows. I'm gonna have these windows for a long time.
And just to be clear, I think, my understanding when you're talking about a maintenance program is you're not talking about the windows, you're talking about the...
HVAC.
Okay.
The HVAC system, because they are
Which
closed.
is a separate thing, but yeah, I'm still all about that HVAC. Maintenance on
Okay,
windows is washing them.
any discussion on that? Everybody good? All those in
Second.
favor, say,
Need it.
I thought,
Catherine, second.
Oh, good.
I heard,
Catherine.
thanks. All those in favor, say aye.
Right.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Okay, item C was a recommendation. So C and D sort of go hand in hand. These are regarding the discussion last week that we had. And so to be clear, the Police Building Study Committee took a vote. And on item C, which is regarding the fire panel, Mango Security was recommended to be the preferred vendor and written into the design spec by the architect. The electricians who are bidding on the project will subcontract Mango to do whatever work is required for the fire panel, and Mango will also program it and certify it as part of those services. Parts may come from Mango. More than likely, the panel itself will come from Mango. But that was the recommendation from the Police Building Study Committee. Do you concur, Pat? So that was C, and if you like, we can combine it with D. D was they took a vote recommending that Mango Security be our sole source for the surveillance and access control systems for the new building. This is so that we maintain the consistency of our products across.
Isn't that what C does?
C is
C is for
specifically
fire.
regarding fire. So in D, we as the owner contract Mango. It does not go through Milestone. C, they are a subcontractor, the electrical contractor. That goes through Milestone, and we pay the 3.95% fee to Milestone regarding that. We do not pay the fee on item D.
Okay, I'll make a motion to name Mango Security as the preferred vendor for fire panel services and parts for the new police station design.
So that's what going with letter C is stated.
Yeah, kind of.
Say that again, John. Joe.
My motion is to have Mango Security be named as the preferred vendor for fire panel services and parts for the police station design.
What about the service and access control systems?
That's I just did it one at a time. I was gonna go down to D afterwards. He's got 2 paragraphs.
Any second on that?
I'll second it for discussion.
Discussion.
I hate sole source. But I do remember when we had a different vendor at the Grange. And it was a nightmare.
That's something to do with exposed copper wiring?
No, this was back,
When was it?
I think actually the building was vacant then. We had just purchased it. And I remember standing there and not being able to get anyone to shut off the alarm that had been going off since about 1 o'clock in the morning.
That's right. Right.
Any other discussion on that?
My only thought is that by keeping the one vendor for that particular thing, it ties in all of our various camera systems, and they do all of them, right?
They do, yes. But this
I
particular
know what
one.
it does.
Okay.
But I just want to say that in addition to this, they take care of the,
Right.
they do
Yes.
all of our security things. So
Yes.
it's all the same system and,
Yeah.
okay.
With two,
That's a good idea.
well, I guess with 2 exceptions of legacy systems that we still have out there that, I plan to replace. But,
Mm.
yes.
Okay. All those in, anyone?
I have one more
Go ahead.
question. This fire panel will not be tied into anything else. It'll be its own separate panel at that building, right?
That's the way I understand it.
It's not connected to town or town hall or any other thing. It's all by itself sitting over there.
It may be connected to Lakes Region Mutual Fire. But,
Well, yes, I would expect that, but it's still its own entity over there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And we're voting on the sole source for the project only.
Just the project only.
Yes. Yeah. For the fire panel at this
Just wanted to clarify.
Fire panel services and parts.
Anything else? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Reluctantly,
I'm abstaining from voting. Reclusing myself. This would be more appropriate. Okay. Next,
I
we
make,
have D.
I would make a motion to name Mango Security to be the sole source vendor for the surveillance and access control systems for the new police station design.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
What's the difference between sole source vendor and preferred source vendor?
Sole source means you don't get to choose. You're going, we said you're going with Mango, you're going with Mango. Preferred just means we'd rather you go with Mango, but if you get somebody else that's cheaper and better, we may consider it. This is a directive that you're only going to use Mango.
So those were the words used in the motions at the Police Building Study Committee. If
We
I
can
remember
vote
correctly.
again to change that in a heartbeat.
Joe, I noticed that in your motion you said design the new
We
police
don't have a
station.
new building. We don't have a new building approved, and so it's just the design of the building.
Well, one of the things that is important to somebody is making a design of it, is that they're not just doing the design and then somebody else gets the design and does the installation.
Right.
I understand that.
So if you tell
So
them
your
you're just
motion
going
is
to...
only limited to the design.
Specifically to the design, yeah. We don't have a building. There's no telling for sure if we're going to have a building. And so the issue would be moot in either case. And I have no intention, I assume that contracts and stuff like that will be ironed out once we get an actual, I'm not saying that we shouldn't use these people. What I'm saying is we don't have a building for it to apply to a building. We have a proposed design. Is that bad?
I
We
think,
don't want to
Yeah.
agree to have somebody install something.
well, here's the problem. What, if I can explain, what happens is a lot of times you get vendors that will go and spend a lot of time drawing things out, listing all the parts, designing the whole system, and putting into paper. And then, if they don't get committed that they will get to do that installation, if it does happen, somebody can take that design and run with it and do the installation. And a lot of times the vendors will not do that unless they promise that they will get to do the installation. So there's so much work involved in the setup.
I can tell you there's a tremendous amount of work. And
That's exactly what we do with Milestone.
But isn't this,
I
isn't
mean,
it,
basically,
Yeah.
we said to them, they're
if
going
we
to be
build this, you're going to be the construction manager.
That's right, it's not written down anywhere, is it?
Oh, is it?
Specifically, yeah.
Yeah.
but wouldn't Mango include in their design, proposed design, that it belongs to them and you can't share it, use it? You've seen those clauses.
Adjust it.
Well, a lot of this is, a lot of the work that they're doing is going into the design that the architect is laying out, because it has to be laid out for the electricians and the conduit and that sort of thing. I mean, we've spent practically an entire day just on infrared lighting and the specs for that and the conduit for that and the locations of those and repositioning things. So there's just and this is also somewhat why I'm concerned about the Police Building Study Committee's vote was much more supportive and encompassing when we held it for this item, whereas I'm hearing from the board, well, let's see what they got
That's
and we'll
what
decide
I
later
said.
on.
They're saying no, they agree with you.
Well, I'm just saying, but it does bring up a concern, because how, and maybe this isn't something for me to bring up, but how would these differences of opinion and motions between the Board of Selectmen and the Police Building Study Committee be resolved?
My way, Tim, has been I'd give you my opinion and I'd still vote for it, but I've given concerns and all ahead of time. I'm leaving it up pretty much to the committee.
As am I. I got no problems with that.
I'd like to make a motion.
We got one on the
floor.
To amend the
On the
motion.
So,
table.
hold on, it's amended. Motion to amend.
Amend the motion to to have Mango Security be the sole source vendor for the surveillance and access control system for the new building, period.
So-
That says it right.
It's kind of a major, I mean, can you make it a little different for sole source for design and vendor, something, but they kind of.
For the design and installation.
So you're meaning to include installation?
Intent is to include design and installation.
So there's
And
an
installation
amendment.
if the new building goes forward?
If at town meeting this is passed.
Kinda hard to, I'll second.
it.
Okay, so a motion to amend to include and installation if it is passed at town meeting,
Right.
or something to that effect. Gil, you will understand.
Okay.
Good.
Discussion.
Aye.
All those, I'm going to call the question. Catherine, you got your hand on your head. You're thinking about saying something?
No, I just,
Okay.
you have an
I know
opportunity
that one.
to bid it out and put it out there for competitive bidding and whatnot, so, yeah, I don't like sole source, that's all. But I understand.
All those in favor say, now we're voting on the amendment first, okay? Not the whole motion. So all those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Okay, and I'm reclusing myself.
So the
Okay.
amendment is the motion.
The amendment is the motion. Is there any further discussion on the motion as amended? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as amended, say aye.
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 Opposed? So moved. I'm reclusing myself on that, too.
Okay, on the back, I just have three other very quick things. One is that the board had asked about sewer billing previously to this, whether we'd received or billed the sewer commission for work done by Public Works, and a couple of days ago, I received the information from the director, so this will be in their quarterly invoice at the end of this month.
Is it itemized?
It will be itemized, yeah.
Just
There
so
were
we know what.
2 people, 8 hours, and the date, and the loaded cost is based on the individual's cost. And then,
And any materials they may have used also.
right. Right. Item 3, regarding the tax rate setting. So in the next 2 weeks, we'll be going through this process, and I'm trying to refine right now the estimated revenues through the end of the year. And as far as I understand, yesterday there was an agreement and a vote on the state budget, so I'm waiting to spend 3 or 4 hours with Jeannie so she can explain to me how that's going to affect us. And, but,
A no vote?
No, it
No,
passed.
it passed.
Oh, it passed.
it did
Okay.
pass, yes. So in any event, we'll be able to have, better footing as to be able to see where we are through the end of the year and see how much fund balance we can use to offset taxes. And then lastly, I've configured the budget, I believe, in the way that the board had asked, with a large print, large format. The additional columns, the removal of the 5-year average, and the only question I had was in the prior 2 years, 2017 and 2018, I was putting in the actuals for that year because putting in budget and actual columns for those 2 years just makes the print that much smaller. So if there's any objection to that, or if you can take a look, obviously, next week when you get it, And if you feel as though you really need the budget column for those 2 years, I can provide that as well.
Alternate each week, 1 week actual, next week budget.
Tim, is it available just online, some printing?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Budget
I'll send
amount?
you the, sure, I'll send you the link to it, and you can take a look as well. But otherwise, I'll print
I
out
want
the,
mine
Yeah.
printed, yeah.
yeah, I'll make sure that everybody has a printed copy next week.
All right,
Any other questions from you?
has this been added to?
Yes, so would you like an overview of the
Yes, I
changes?
just wanted to, yeah, please.
So the board, I don't believe the board has seen, has reviewed the location of cameras in the past, but there are 2 of these plans that pertain to cameras. One is an exterior camera view, and the other, in other words, cameras that are not affixed to the building, either on the outside or inside. And then the other plan, which the one with the dots that I think you're all looking at right now, those are the internal cameras and the cameras that are attached to the building. So you want to take a look at the dots first, I would imagine. So the green dots represent audio and visual, and there's some areas that are just seem like overkill, but there's really nothing we can do about it. If you look at the very bottom of the chart on the bottom left side, you'll see all the cells. Each cell, including the back portion of the cell and the front portion of the cell, have to have audio and visual coverage. So each of those green dots, the same goes for the interview rooms. The red dots are just regular cameras with no audio. And then I believe, in most cases, I've noted on the sidebar there, which are motion controlled and which are round the clock, always on. And some of these, the PD has reasons why, say in a cell, so that there's proof that something wasn't turned on and turned off. It's recording around the clock. So when someone's taken in there, there isn't a start and stop prior to that. It's just constantly recording. So in any event, there's a certain number of audio and visual cameras. There's a certain number of fixed cameras. And then there's 2 systems for in the building. One of which is in the detectives area, which is a smaller system. And then the primary system is in the communications area. And it was determined as we went through this, we were trying to put them all on one, but there were just too many cameras by the time you added up all the interior cameras and the exterior cameras and the pole cameras. So, yes.
Don't we have, pardon me, didn't we just redo the cameras at the old police
And we're
station?
taking everything we have with us,
All that stuff
except for the
is
wire. Absolutely. Yep. We're not pulling the wire. It's pennies. So in any event, the yellow dot represents where the main NVR is. That's in the communications room. And then also the black dots represent where HDMI connections to the NVRs are located, meaning that's where that they can be viewed with fixed station TVs. In addition to that, somebody could, with permission, could log in and take a look at any particular camera. But for instance, today we have in the squad room and also in dispatch, there are large TVs that have the cameras up on those, so that when there's someone in the squad room writing a report and they've got someone in the cell, they're able to see them as well as hear them because they're right next door. But then there are also exterior cameras fixed to the building there. If you move to the next plan, which is the access controls, those are the circles and the colored circles. And in general, there's some plus signs and some other things. There's a lot of different things going on there. But essentially, so you want to go to the circles?
I have a question on this page.
Yep. Yeah.
So in the back corner where the door is, that's a window?
That is a window. According to the plan, that's a window.
So
No
you have a
cameras.
camera down here by the lobby, and you have a camera over here around the corner.
There's an exterior camera that covers that window.
There's a camera somewhere by this window?
Yes, on a pole. And you'll see it on, when we look at the
It's on
exterior.
this one.
Yes. Yeah. So that first chart represents all the cameras that are affixed to the building itself. All right, so let's go to the, if you go to the site map, which is what Joe and Catherine are on. So on the site map, you've got 8 cameras, and those are on, there are poles there. You can see the direction of the cameras. There are 2 facing Route 132. There's one that faces the entrance and also looks towards the back of the building. You'll notice that the plan that we had still had that jog at the back of the building, so clearly when we get a new one, I'll update this to reflect that that's squared off. But those 8 cameras are sufficient to cover this area, and we're putting in really a high-performance infrared devices, one facing the entrance, the general entrance to the property, and that will capture license plates coming and going. And then the other is facing back towards the window side of the building, which is where all the windows are, so that that camera will provide security, and that's a pan-tilt zoom camera. So that'll allow someone in dispatch, if they see some sort of activity by the back of the building, because the building is 150 feet long, essentially. So this gives somebody in dispatch the ability to zoom into that back corner of the building if they needed to, and it would be illuminated enough at night through the infrared illuminator to be able to see what was happening.
Well, what happens when there's nobody in dispatch?
Then it would be recording whatever's taking place.
So it would zoom in.
No,
So you wouldn't have a really close picture of a face or...
Not necessarily. It would be left on whatever the dispatcher had, or whomever had last controlled the camera. It would be left on that.
I have a question about the technology that we use. I see some camera representations from businesses and, just out and about, restaurants and Walmart. You look at their cameras and kind of a joke is from here to the camera, you couldn't recognize me. Yeah. So the level of these cameras are going to be able to identify people theoretically,
Yes.
or be clear enough that possibility might exist.
Yes. Where you run into trouble is if somebody's got a hat on,
I get
somebody's got a hoodie or that sort of thing. Selectman Dawson, I'm sure Selectman Scanlon have seen many instances where particularly our cameras, because Selectman Dawson's has seen a number of people at the park.
It's not the license plate from Franklin Savings Bank, remember that?
Yep, the
I've
bank,
seen
the
a
bank
few,
robber.
and they're
years ago.
pretty good.
Just the other night, there was some vandalism out front of Town Hall, and we were able to see the people that were involved very clearly at night. So it was about, what was it, midnight?
Between, about 11:30 midnight.
Yeah.
Solid vandals.
Oh, that's the worst. What kind of deal is that?
So in any event, one thing I wanted to point out on the site map, in green, coming out of the middle of the building towards on the north side, is there's a conduit and a box that's buried underground, and that's placed there for any future poles that are put once there's a parking lot there, whether it's gravel or whatever. And or if somebody down the road wants to put poles in over there with lights and cameras on the football field or whatever else is ever put in that area, there will be a chase coming out of the building that can be connected to, so it doesn't have to be rebored or anything like that. So on the last one, which is the access control system, those are the ones with the circles. So this is a very complex environment. The green circles represent what dispatch has to be able to open from dispatch, which is another reason why there need to be cameras in certain areas. For instance, the state police come and use our booking area to book people. So they wouldn't have access controls to our Sally Port by themselves. They'd have to radio in and call into dispatch and explain that they had a prisoner they needed to come in and book. So dispatch would have to be able to open those. There are many other areas. The bail bondsman door, which is the door closest to the booking area and cells, that not only has a remote release, but it also has what's called an A-phone entry video phone. So it's a two-way communication with dispatch. And so as a bail bondsman comes, they can ring that. They can have a discussion with the dispatcher. The dispatcher can verify who they are visually, and then buzz the door open to let them in. On each of these doors as well, there's intrusion detection to be sure, or contacts, if you will, so that if it's in the middle of winter time and there's snow or ice or that sort of thing that prohibits the door from closing, it will show up in dispatch that the door is still ajar, that it's not secure. The red circles represent single badge type access controls. So in other words, you have to use a badge to get through that particular door going a certain way. The purple, I believe it's purple on there, or maybe it's red, or no. I guess it's purple. The dual access control doors require
Blue.
Well, I think it's
I
supposed
know
to be
where we
purple.
are.
But in any event, those are dual access controls, which require swiping the door on either side to get in and out. And some of that is because of the security when handling someone in custody, so that if they were to overpower someone, they're not going to be able to just get out of a particular area. And then there is an A-phone unit, that two-way video phone for the employee entrance in the event someone has lost their keys. And there's also one in the Sally Port for state police or otherwise, so that, again, dispatch is able to remotely open that door. It was determined originally we had access controls for all the cell doors, but it was determined that the police department would have to have a policy that there has to be an officer in booking if there's someone in the cell. So they can't go back to the squad room, they can't go out on a call, they need to remain in the booking area while there's someone in one of the cells. And this is partly for if there were a fire or some other means, but these are all key controlled, so they're actual keys that would open those doors. In the lobby there is a call box, which you can see, and as I mentioned, and when we talk about doors and door strikes, there are two doors that if you were to go from the police administrative area or the squad room and go over to detectives or booking, you have to swipe through two different doors to get down one hallway and then get down the other hallway. So a number of these doors are going to have a great deal of activity, and they would be left closed, for security reasons. Yeah.
In the lobby, that blue plus with the red circle, it's a locked door.
Intrusion detection and regular access control.
Right, so that's a door that's normally kept locked?
No, well, there was a great deal of discussion on that. It was finally determined that that door is going to be left open the majority of the time, so that the lobby would be open and available to the public. And that's why the call box was put interior to it. But they still wanted to have access control on it if they did need to lock it for some reason.
So that would be required that we have somebody at dispatch 24/7 to watch that? When would it be locked?
So,
I guess, wait, I should get to the point of my question is,
sure.
after hours call box is behind a locked door. That's my,
Their intention is to leave that door unlocked all the time, so that would be open overnight. There was some discussion about how they do it now, how there was some back and forth, but that was the eventual decision. But they wanted to leave access control on it if they did need to lock it for some reason, that an officer could open it from the outside. But their intention was to leave that unlocked. So, and there's a lot, I've just sort of skimmed the surface of how these interior access controls work. There's a lot of logic behind why certain doors are coded a certain way and others are not. But this was there was a great deal of work with both the PD and Mango Security, and the architect as well, weighing in. So
These cells are kind of overkill, aren't they, for cells that we hold people for a few hours and send to county?
well, I don't disagree with you. I've wondered if there wasn't I personally felt, to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cameras within the space of about 15 feet. But each of these is a solid door. There's a solid sliding door in the back, and there's I say solid, but with glass. But there's in other words, they're sight and sound controlled, so that and that's by design because of the code that they have to adhere to for keeping people separate, and because of that, they have to have surveillance in each of those areas.
But they have cameras in the bathroom. I mean,
Well, there's a back cell area, which is a sliding door to that area.
what is the
And the-
purpose of the front part? That little room that just kind of.
I'd have to defer to the
Limo
PD,
room?
but it's
Repository?
Where?
Yeah.
Which one?
it,
This
So
makes
the-
no sense to me.
so in the back there's a sliding door.
Except you just said, see the sliding door right there?
Yeah.
So this is the cell on the back. What's the front?
Well, there's a door into that front area as well. So I would rather than try to explain it because I know I'll get it wrong, I would defer to the captain.
Reminds me of the old Wiz. You walk into a room where the cells are.
conjugal visits.
Yeah, but it just seems like such overkill for, again, a facility that holds people for a matter of a few hours until somebody can transport them to county.
There must be a reason.
I hope so,
There must be a reason.
because I'm gonna put that on
Oh,
my
we'll
list
just
of
put an
questions.
extra little room there.
There's
Put that on my
there's
list
a
of
valid reason.
questions.
It has to do with sight and sound separation, but I would defer to the captain to explain it in
Great job, Tim.
detail. So that's what we have so far. So we are covered on the outside and on the inside,
Is my
and then
copy?
some. If you like, it is. Just keep in mind it is subject to change.
Yeah.
So we have made little tweaks to these over the last few days, and
Many, until we say
many.
enough.
and there will probably be more. Unless there are any other questions, I'll.
I
Unless the
have
committee
one.
says enough.
Yes, ma'am?
So, this resulted, I have several questions now for the committee. Do we have an avenue in which that selectmen independently can send a question to the committee that it would go to all the boards, so everybody would see? So let's say I want to get my question asked and not hold things up, wait till Monday, send it to email that automatically goes to all those it should, Jeannie, Board of Selectmen, and then they send a response back the same way, so the response everybody gets to see as well.
But then you would only be getting a person's view, the chairman or the person that's sending the response back, either one committee member or whatever, and not the
No, I'm-
viewpoint of the entire committee.
So when I communicate with my other park commissioners,
Yeah.
I send it out to all of them.
Right,
They all see it and respond, you know.
right. I do that with the
So that's
executive
what I'm
committee.
saying, it would go to the committee,
Right,
and not necessarily for an immediate response. Let's say I can't attend Monday's meeting.
right.
Well, but I could attend the meeting 2 weeks later. So rather than hold it up for 2 weeks,
Well, we do have, just as you have Board
An
of
ex
Selectmen.
officio,
Well, as well, I was just going to say from an email standpoint, just as you have Board of Selectmen at tiltonnh.org, there is a distribution list for the Police Building Study Committee as well.
but not everybody's on that, right?
yeah. And it wouldn't work unless everybody was on it.
Is Ken on it?
It was they all understood that they shouldn't respond independently, that it goes, these are questions for the committee to discuss at the meeting,
So,
and then a question and answer.
That would be a good
comes back.
idea. If you phrased it that way, that would be an excellent way to communicate to them.
Well, I'm just thinking, because,
Right.
and I'm only bringing it up because we're in a hurry.
Yep.
So, like a question box.
Yeah,
You drop your question in
That's
the
a good
box,
idea.
and then when they get to their meeting, they open them up and they all answer.
right, so if I ask a question, that question should go to all my counterparts, so they know what I'm asking, and the answer should come to all of us.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
so you could send the question to me, copy all the selectmen. When the committee meets, I could bring all those questions forward. And then when they answer that, I could then send out a response.
Better than an ex officio.
Well, I'm just the administrative pack, so.
Well, I'm just saying better than an ex officio. I meant it.
It's good.
That's why you get paid the big bucks.
So if there's
Problem
nothing else-
solved.
No,
Thank you so much, Tim.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Good job, Tim. I know you put a lot into that.
An awful lot.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Yep.
Okay, so if I do send the question out, everybody understands that it's for everybody, go there, everybody gets the response.
Right.
I'm not real computer savvy, I always forget to reply all. Well, I don't always, I'm getting better. I should say I have a tendency.
So if you sent it to me and you didn't send it to everyone, I would respond back and copy everyone. Then they would see it.
You won't forget. Thank you.
okay. So, next thing we've got selectmen reports, and, I was trying to figure out how it would always be alphabetical or something like that, and I looked,
That was Gail. She just
She just
started
dropped-
the next
Did she
one.
did it?
She just dropped me
I like
down to
it.
the bottom and then went up again.
Catherine's up
Oh, I
first.
see. There it is. Great idea. So like the, going,
The week I got a lot.
No?
Okay.
I did, Peter's the chair of the sewer commissioners. I'll leave it to him to enlighten you on Tuesdays.
You don't have
Pre-con
to.
meeting.
You can.
uh-oh.
Oh, look, it's
Come on,
Peter
it's passing the
Barnes.
bat.
So the next person is Peter.
Peter.
So Tuesday afternoon, sewer commission, police, fire, water. And a fellow selectman came a little bit late, but he did show up. Thank you for coming, Joe. And then Rowles came to explain the pipe bursting project for Cedar Street. There's going to be somewhere around 4 or 5 pits dug to do the pipe bursting. The pipe comes in 40-foot sections. They're going to first be fusing sections. They'll dig 2 holes to set up the 2 pits, draw through that section, connect the laterals, then continue down the road. Total time is around 6 or so working days. They're looking to get started. I believe it's next Wednesday on fusing pipe. The materials may come in earlier. They're going to store some on the staging area on the vacant lot on the upper end of Cedar, and then there may be some other pipe stored on Maple Court. We're also going to be checking out the other roads to see the condition of the pipe there, to see what we may have to do prior to paving there. So that was the sewer meeting. After that meeting, the water district commented about a sinkhole in the driveway off of Academy Street. So Catherine and I went over there and got into a discussion with them on the proposed wall and talking with the water company. They're saying our whole project is going in on their property. They're not against it, but they would like to meet with us to have a discussion to see are we doing the best thing for the project, which is why I sent that email out, I think it was Tuesday night. So I think we need to have Gail see when we can set up a joint meeting with the water commissioners and have a discussion and have the project on hold until that point.
Should we include the contractor? So you can explain?
I think we should include everybody. That's what we should have done in the beginning. We should have at least included the water department in on this discussion, way in the very beginning.
And they were.
None of us thought about it.
It was separate
So,
discussion. Go ahead.
so when this whole project started, when we were down there, John Humiston and Kevin, there were people from the water district there at that discussion about what we were going to do with the wall. I think this has been delayed and delayed, and it wasn't until last week when you finally said, yes, let's go, let's move forward. And then the very next day, it feels like it's been months since I've been here, but it was either me or Gail reached out to the water company to let them know this was going to happen. So a joint meeting, yes, maybe that, but there seems to be this idea out there that they were never aware of anything, and that's just not true.
No, they said that to their knowledge we were still in the engineering phase, and I'm just what I was told. My big concern is, regardless if this wall's going on their property, they do have a major say.
Absolutely,
That's
absolutely.
all.
Yeah. And if you remember last week, at least when we left it, you gave me two tasks.
Mhm.
One was to find out, get more information about what he meant by that 5 foot. I
Mhm.
did speak with him the next day. He said it was 5 foot to grade, so it's
Mhm.
not out, it's up, depending on the grade, but it would go up to grade. So maybe the use of the word 5 foot was not probably the most accurate for him to use, but it was not out onto their property, it was going up to grade, however that would work out, because...
Then I'm at a total loss on what they're doing. I'm even
Yep.
further behind now then.
And in terms of if they were on their property, that was something that I had asked, because I was leaving the next day to have that researched. And I came back, and so I don't know where that's at. But to the point of having a meeting with everybody, obviously I think that more communication is better. And I don't have any issue with it. But I guess, like I say, just this, there seemed to be this notion out there that they had never been part of this discussion. That wasn't true.
Okay.
Good, we're gonna fix it
Hopefully.
and not
So
delay the
we
project.
want to
Oh, it
get
will be
together, or
delayed.
Are we going,
Just, it
But how
will
long are we gonna delay it?
be, well, you're gonna have, it will be delayed.
this is the question.
Yeah.
Do we want to go and set up a meeting where we're involved, or the contractors involved, to talk to them, or? and
Well, why
then
can't
also-
Jeannie go and talk with them, and if it's on their property, then we're gonna work out some type of an easement issue, because they're for the project. They wanna work with us because it's going to affect their project, their land. This this project. It's gonna better it because it's spilling into their issue behind the barn, the garage.
But they're also looking more for an interlocking wall.
They're concerned to
Well,
the
that
integrity of
would be
it.
more
and
expensive.
how it's going to, whether it's gonna work.
Yep.
into
Then
it.
maybe they'll pitch in on an interlocking wall.
And they might, but they can't unless we have a meeting and
So,
have everyone meet.
And it won't happen until next year.
I think they expected to see final engineering plans so they could see what was going in there. Because some of the other topics they brought up is they're concerned about the closeness to the side of their garage.
Well, wait a minute now. If they were concerned, if they knew we were working with engineers on a project that was going to be in close proximity of their building and that was going to resolve an issue that they have in that we have with the water, why didn't they come to us 2 months ago, even in the engineering process, and say, can we be a part of this? Because
they
we'd
thought
like to
we were-
find a resolve together.
As Peter
So where do
said,
we go from here?
they thought we were still in
Keep going.
the engineering process.
Even if we were in the engineering process,
They-
wouldn't they, obviously, if they want to do interlocking and not just have a wall built, if they want to engineer, they have ideas and input that seems to me like what Peter's saying, that they want to have input into it.
And we didn't invite them.
That would have been the
They-
time.
I believe they expected to be presented with a design.
And then
So
that would have
all
been
they
too late.
know is, we're putting up a wall.
So when
They
can
still
we
haven't
get
seen
together
design.
with them? I think we need to set up a time and a date for everybody to get together in as soon as
we
possible.
can set that up. But it won't, it will, just so everybody's
gonna
clear.
Will it
that's
put it
fine.
into next year?
It may, I don't know, I need to go, but
It
still. at
hasn't
the end-
failed yet.
Yeah, right.
Yet.
I don't think it's
Okay.
gonna,
So
I
don't
think we
get-
should give the property owner the
I
privilege to come
totally
in
agree. I
because
couldn't
we're
agree
on
with
their
you.
property. We don't even have an easement to do it.
Peter, I couldn't agree with you more, but now we've gotten into at least 3 different projects in the last 8 months, and we've been in some variable of delays because with different departments or within our town and engineers and so on and so forth, because of lack of communication,
well,
only.
I will gladly go in non-public to discuss further if you'd like.
Simple, it's very simple,
Well,
lack of communication.
We're trying to communicate. We gave them the information.
After the fact,
And now they want more information, and that's part of
right?
it. And let's, try and focus on the good part and get it moving as quick as possible, but do it thoughtfully
And let me
and do it right.
Can I just say one more thing? When I say lack of communication, it's not just on the Board of Selectmen's part. Let me make that very clear, because they could have communicated with us very clearly that they wanted to have input in what's going on in that little project.
Let's
We
go
would
non-public
gladly
then.
invited them.
Go non-public, because I can turn it all sorts of ways.
Yeah.
Do we have a specific, I don't want to say engineer because I know it's not, but a design of depth, height, elevations,
I
materials?
need to check with Kevin. Kevin was working with
Okay.
the contractor on that. But I guess at the end of the day, it's better to have more communication than less. I agree with whoever said it. I don't think the wall's gonna fail if we wait until the spring. You remember when we started this process out, just getting an engineering study, which was what, $35,000 for an engineering study.
Right.
That wasn't even just to do the work.
Mhm.
So,
I don't think they're necessarily looking for engineering, but they
Well,
may want
but I
to change
heard-
the design and possibly contribute for the cost.
but I heard something about it, wanting to see the engineer, we didn't have an engineering design done because of the cost of the engineering design.
All I know is I was relayed from John Chase that he was just notified that the project's happening, so
And that is true, Peter, because this process is, as soon as
Okay,
you
but he
all,
also said he
last
was-
Thursday,
He only
said-
knew of engineering, so I can see where he would be confused.
As soon as you all said last Thursday that this was good to go, the first thing that I did was let them know, or again, I can't remember, it was me or Gail called and said, this is gonna happen. But I do believe there had been communication about concern about the integrity of underneath, which is why we had the study done, the sonogram. And that, I believe, came from some folks over there at the Water District who were concerned about the integrity. So we did that. So
And
There
pretty
has
much
been
wasted the
communication.
money because the disclaimers in that,
Yeah, it's kind of inconclusive.
we had all because
Yeah.
Scott asked us, all that paint on the road, did they tell us any voids? And it's like, not with the disclaimers, it could be this, could be that, there was nothing definitive.
Potential voids. I don't think there is any definitive
Well, if there are, you
Without
would have
void.
holes in the pavement.
So,
single.
what plan of
I
action do you
will, so at this
suggest?
point, I will reach out to the contractor. I think it's important to have him in that discussion and see about scheduling a meeting with the Water District and the Select Board. And I would say we should try to do it for next week's meeting.
In the meantime, we need to be, it sounds like we feel we have a 2-foot right-of-way. Can we,
Yeah, I don't know because I just
can
From
we,
where?
I don't know. I'm just saying, can we, the road book or review selectmen's minutes in the past?
Can't you also get it
And
looking
find out
at
what we
their,
actually own there?
Catherine, if we looked at the Water District's deeds for those two lots, can't you work it backwards that way too?
That might be a good way.
That's one way to start.
Catherine, can you assist in researching it?
I can,
Okay.
I can. Or Brooklyn.
So the plan is everybody, the heads will meet next Thursday, meeting, and gather up information on the location of right of way and all that sort of stuff. Boundaries and any other questions that the water department might have.
That was Pleasant Street, right?
Academy?
Academy.
No, it was Pleasant Street.
Back in the day.
Back in the day, yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
Sorry, yeah.
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
That's it, Peter. That's it. Unless we've got an update on the crosswalk, but she's been on vacation, so we'll wait another week.
Well, I actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I did get an email back from Senator Guida asking if there was any, if we had any email correspondence or mail communication between Tilton and the DOT on the issue. He'd like to see what that is before he, just kind of as support as he goes forward with this. Was there? Has there?
Never seen anything
There was-
as an email, but lots of talking,
Conversation.
There were-
conversation.
They were
Okay,
here.
Sidewalks.
I don't know if that was recorded.
I may have sent them an email sometime in the past 15 years.
Okay.
I know I've had communication
With
with
Bill Lambert?
Bill Lambert.
Bill Lambert,
Okay.
Smoky
And
Bear
also-
Drive.
Bill Lambert
About
also
that.
recorded, yeah.
Well,
He's on Smoky Bear Drive,
Oh,
about that crosswalk.
okay.
I just don't know if it was face-to-face
Yeah.
email.
And we've
Okay.
discussed it here
Yeah.
a couple of times with Bill Lambert and the other Bill up there, the engineer.
Yeah.
From District 3. They came here and sat here, so there might be recorded minutes of that.
false sense of security, he kept saying.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have right now. So I will follow up.
Joe?
Just a follow-up on Brook Road. Did you happen to find anything out about the top of Brook Road?
I did ask Kevin to look at that, and I haven't seen any response back. Well, when the conversation that I had with him is he was aware of it, and he was going to reach out to see what was going on. And I haven't.
Looks to me like Pike milled it with the milling machine, so they
Yeah,
can
it
fix
looked
it.
like it was milled,
Yeah.
for sure.
So are you saying it looks like they addressed it? No,
They created the problem, I think,
Right.
thinking it was part of the district paving,
right.
and it wasn't. It was the other roads in that.
And they're
So-
gonna put a new apron in there, but they
Yeah.
didn't.
So,
They need to come in and put in at least an apron.
Yeah, cookies.
okay. So after we had the conversation, I did follow up with Kevin, I think it was Thursday night or Friday morning, and asked him to check. And he said he was aware of it, they were aware of it, and I haven't had the chance to talk to Kevin yet.
And next is me. I think it's great seeing they started doing the painting down at T-Hop. Everybody
Well,
stop by, take a look.
I've been down there.
Pretty exciting.
Nice.
A lot of people were pretty excited about that. I think Donna was going to call you getting about that. She wants some more information. And I said that you'd be back.
Cruise down.
But that's pretty much it. I have no further information. Pat?
I have a lot. Sit down, be comfortable. So the Vicky Virgin, thank you, Joe. Vicky Virgin Food Drive was last Saturday. Yeah, the 21st, right? Joe kind of set it up for the Family Resource Center, kind of took over for the day under the town of Tilton. They would like to continue with it under the name Town of Tilton, and then we continue with it under that. Explorers helped out throughout the day, so that was thank you for the Explorers. They raised $1,235 and filled 10 carts of food, which they said sent a heartfelt thanks to the town of Tilton. The Tilton Senior Center, they had a volunteer for a day of caring through United Way. Judy Vincent, Roseanne Backerwine, employed by the AFL of Belmont, and Deanne Hogan, the CPA of Moultonborough. The companies pay the volunteers for 4 hours of wages to do this volunteering, if you would. And what they did at the senior center was finish painting after we did some construction work when we built the closet in the hallways that we needed to repaint, and we just haven't gotten around to painting it, so they painted the hallways for us by the office in the bathrooms. So now it's all one color. So I want to just shout out to them and thank them for doing that work. Kim Souls, everyone knows Kim Souls. She's the deputy town clerk tax collector. On Wednesday, October 9th at 6 p.m. at the Tilton School Library, she will be, the Tilton Historical Society will be hosting a talk on early New England gravestone rubbings, 17th to 18th century. And then on October 26th, time to be determined, Kim will also give a walk or a tour of the Park Cemetery, exploring the 19th century Victorian grave markings, what they represent. And as a lot of people do not know that she wears a different hat and has researched and done this, has been a historian on New England early gravestone rubbing, gravestones and gravestone rubbings, and she does a lot of teachings to students when they reach this in their history, 3rd or 4th grade, and talks about the symbolisms and what they mean on different gravestones and things like that, what the grapes mean, what the rafts, things like that. So it should be interesting, so if anybody would like to go, I'm putting it out there on the camera. That should be an interesting night. She's very, very knowledgeable. She's been over 35 years in this type of environment.
Excuse me, it was
October-
Wednesday,
October 9th at 6 p.m. at the Tilton School Library. And then October 26th, that's the Halloween thing. She's going to do a walk or a tour of the Park Cemetery, exploring the 19th century Victorian grave markers, because it's very small. So last but not least, this is a little bit more involved. I read on Facebook, which I rarely do lately, but on Northfield Tilton's Talking, and there was 136 or 138 comments addressing Chestnut Street and a plethora of issues. One of the issues was vehicles parked within 5 feet of the stop signs on High and Chestnut Street, and Mr. Weatherby was the one that, Mike Weatherby was the one that put this out and said, is this legal? And there was quite a lot of comments. And it's not legal. You can't park within that distance of an intersection and a stop sign. But if you remember correctly, the board a few years back, and maybe Catherine can correct me on this, but it was like 2 or 3 years back, the chief had put up signs, no parking from here to the curb, and the board asked him to take them down because we told him that he didn't have permission from us to put them up. But it's illegal. It's the law. They can't do it. But that's one of the issues that they're all having on Chestnut Street. The cars are being parked. There's an apartment place right up there, an apartment on the corner of High and Chestnut, and they're parking right on the side of the road on Chestnut, actually going the wrong way. You can see the vehicle. I could pull it up if you want, the picture. The other issue is when you come on High Street, going towards from Cedar Street towards on High Street towards Chestnut Street, if you want to take a right, you cannot see what's coming down Daniel Drive because there's a bush and a granite marker that's in the way there. And in the past, Dennis has always gone to the architect that owns the old Tilton Inn and asked to have that trimmed back, and it's way overgrown now. You cannot see vehicles coming down Daniel Drive whatsoever, which was another issue that was addressed in these comments. Until you start to creep out, you're almost halfway into the road before you can actually see a car coming down Daniel Drive. The other issue that they brought up, and it's really sad to say, but they said a few people had said selectmen failed us, and they said that selectmen failed us because 5 or 6 years ago we had a forum, and the forums we wanted to hear about all the problems that they were having in the village district and what was going on with the sidewalks, and that people were parking on the sidewalks. People couldn't walk on the sidewalks. There were no sidewalks. There were painted sidewalks. There were raised sidewalks. There were, should we make it one way? The chief was involved. The police were involved. There was enforcement. There was non-enforcement. There was a lot of issues, and the place was packed full of residents. And we sort of, as a board, dropped the ball because we left it in the hands of the chief, and we said, maybe a year or two later, we said, can we have this study done? And we had a study done, that was dropped, and then we said, Chief, let's do something. Either we make it one way, we don't make it one way, what are we going to do? How are we going to fix this issue? Because they're coming into Cedar Street, they're coming down High Street, they're coming down Chestnut Street. I live in that neighborhood. I know what it's like. I walk my dogs on Cedar Street. The speed bumps have truly enhanced our life on Cedar Street. We have to do something for these residents, and we don't need to read about it on Facebook. So I did invite Mr. Weatherby to make a phone call and sit before us, but we really should open that forum back up to the people and the residents down there, open it back up in the discussion with the chief and say, where are we at with Chestnut, Prospect, High, the tree streets, and say, what's going on here? We have to fix this issue. I don't know what the fix is. We couldn't agree on the fix before, but we need to find a resolve.
Why don't we simply, the Board of Selectmen, instruct our police department to enforce the laws that are already on the books? You can't park within 20 feet of an intersection.
That's an easy fix,
You
I
can't
think.
park on the sidewalk.
No, you can't.
So
Peter
why
had his hand
are
up,
we
so
ignoring it?
But,
had his hand up for a while.
okay, so if you're gonna do that, that lot parking spot goes, the ones by Rescue and Tryon go, you got a whole bunch on Main Street you'll lose too. But getting back to the tree district area and all, if you recall, we had Steve Pernar, the traffic engineer, give you layouts based on width of road,
Right.
what you can do. And if you want parking in that tree area, the way it's gonna have to work is one-way roads.
But you don't
Oh.
need parking. If you drive those streets, and I have, and I did it with the tax maps, everybody has a driveway. Everybody has a place to park. There's some apartment buildings there, and if you look, they have plenty of parking. They have parking. They don't need to be parking on the street.
They have-
They do it because it's convenient and because they're allowed to.
They have ample, they have ample parking for themselves. If they had somebody over, if they had their family over, if they had a visitor come over, and let's say Joe stopped in to see them, they don't have parking for that. There's no parking for that at all. I have ample parking for me and my tenants, but if they had company over, they're parking on Maple Court. So, particularly High Street, where the apartments are, there's not enough, they have ample parking in their driveway for each one of those apartments there. But if they had company over, forget it. The same with the High Street in the corner of High and Chestnut. You know, opposite Spruce Street? That apartment building?
Yes.
Okay, so then you go down High Street on the corner of High in Chestnut, there's apartments there. There in the back, there's parking. So there's 4 apartments, I think, there. You would
Is
know
it
better.
duplex?
I think it's only an upstairs, downstairs.
Okay, so the
And they had to
duplex.
deliver flyers there once.
So
They have parking.
They
have
have
a lot of parking.
they have parking, yet
Out back.
that's the one out front that's parking out front.
Because
but-
it's convenient.
Go down to the apartments, they have enough for the spaces if down in by the 29 and the 27 range. They have enough for the apartment dwellers, but if you had somebody over, you don't have enough parking. So they have ample parking for themselves. And that's why it's so difficult in the village area, because you don't. Cedar Street, they have just enough for themselves, most of them. There's a couple,
I disagree.
no, I'll tell you, if look
There
at,
are some that do, but I think the majority have, unless they're having quite a party, they have parking. But even so, the police should be enforcing those laws. They should have been enforcing them all this time. If you drive through there, you will often find people on the sidewalks, because we've been inspecting in that area for quite a while now, and the driveway's empty. It's a convenience.
so I drove down just before the meeting, I drove up Chestnut Street and then over High and then down Prospect. And there were 3 vehicles parked on the sidewalk. Nobody was going to walk on the sidewalk. You couldn't get by the vehicles on the sidewalk. So that's enforcement. I agree with you. That's enforcement. But something has to happen. I mean, we can't, we need a fix here. We need something happening here for these residents. They're our residents.
So if we instruct them to enforce, they could also gather information.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a great idea, but send a directive to the chief and say,
I mean,
we would like to have patrols in the tree streets, and we would like to make sure you enforce the High and Chestnut and no parking next to the signs, put the signs back up.
yeah,
No parking here to corner?
It's not just a problem for that one area. It is a problem throughout this village area, downtown area. I would send it and CC it to the captain and the sergeant. Sergeant Morrison. So that-
I think downtown is exclusive to that, because
well,
otherwise you're
when I
going to
say
take
village,
spot.
I'm thinking
Right.
North of Main
north
Street.
of Main Street, right. So Academy and Prospect High.
You know,
And your-
because curiously enough, in the winter, when the signs go up, because of the plowing,
Yeah.
not a lot of problem. So where do they go? But it would be interesting if we can get them to start enforcing that, those laws that are already on the books, the state laws, and gather information at the same time.
Why would we remove the sign about no parking from here to the stop sign?
It had something to do with the chief being instructed to put the sign up and,
I can tell the story.
okay.
I was down there inspecting and almost was out there with the homeowner. And there was a car parked very close to the corner. There was a almost hit and blah, blah, blah. I called up the captain and said, and told him what the issue was, told him what had just happened, and said, just, isn't there a law in the books? And he said, yes, there is. I said, well, can't we enforce it? He said, yes, we can. So the chief, when the Board of Selectmen wanted to know why the sign went up, the chief indicated that I had told them to put a sign up. I didn't tell them to put a sign up. That was a decision they made. It was a safety issue. The safety people, they put a sign up to warn people don't park here before we ticket you. And the Board of Selectmen told them to take it down.
Still can't imagine I would vote for
Well,
that.
he did indicate that I had told him, but I had the
Even if you had, that's a common sense thing.
I had the conversation with the captain. But it doesn't matter. I mean, I agree with
I
you.
remember.
It was the police department trying to enforce a law that's on the state books. And the
They
board
can
of-
still enforce it if there's no sign, correct?
Well, they've always felt it's like we have to put signs up in our parking lot room from park, because even though it is for people using the park only,
I'm going down Chestnut Street.
they can, are you
Maps.
seeing it?
Well, I see like people parked blocking their driveway that's empty,
Yeah.
okay? Let's go down a little further.
So for enforcement, it's much easier if they have a sign up that warns
There's
people.
2 cars parked.
Otherwise they're gonna say, well, I didn't know. I didn't know.
But,
So did you is everybody in agreement that we should ask them to take a look at the tree streets in the village?
Seems like we already did that.
But I don't think we
What do you
sent
mean
a
we already did
letter
that?
out from the Board of Selectmen, signed by all of us, telling there's a problem and they need to patrol these streets. And like I said, CC it to the captain and to Sergeant Morrison, so
Yeah,
that
because Sergeant
that
Morrison,
command
right,
staff all knows.
right.
That way, if somebody's on vacation, we got
Okay, so we can take the cars off the street, but how do we deal with the rest of it? A one-way?
let
No,
them
if you
gather information.
If you have no parking, because the road is not wide enough for two-lane traffic, sidewalk and
Yeah,
parking.
and emergency vehicles and what have you. And they were talking about making
If you,
Cedar Street one-way going down toward Winter. And that would do away with the cut across in that entire neighborhood, because
you would-
you couldn't go over there, make a left and go up Cedar Street.
but you'd also on Chestnut have to, from the church, at least from the church north, go one way also.
But I think, Joe, he changed his decision on that and put the strips there, and that kind of curbed the one way. We tried it out and it worked. It actually cut down significant the amount of cars that are traveling there,
I've talked
along with the speed.
a resident right there on the corner who might dispute that, at least in his conversations with me. I don't know what's happening down in your neighborhood, but he says they still zoom around. They slow down for the speed bump and then
Oh, and then they
start right up again. It's a function basically of the school system letting out.
I'm getting my information from the police. I didn't get the information from the residents. So.
Anecdotal from a homeowner.
Okay.
Didn't we ask them last week to look at this?
We need to send a letter
Peabody
and
Street.
tell
Peabody.
them there's a problem and that they need to. We've
The-
never done that.
The other thing is that we have to ask Kevin maybe to touch bases with the owner of the Tilton Inn, the architect, and ask him if he can't, would be willing again to trim that bush that's there. I have no idea what the name of the bush is, but
We should include the shrubbery at 48 Prospect Street, which is at the end of High and Prospect, because it's the same problem.
yep.
There's a lot of that going on in that neighborhood. We should identify all the places.
He's
that
been
need-
so willing to do it in the past
Yeah.
that we just, with the different directors, I think that in the last 3 or 4 years, it's just gotten forgotten.
The other thing is a lot of people need to go and call the police if they have illegal parking things, not put it on Facebook and 138 people comment on it. At least make the call and, do it that way. 'Cause I don't go and check Facebook for stuff.
There's no enforcement, so it's a moot point.
I
Until we
believe
start to
they said
enforce.
that they had made calls in the past. Don't know.
And I think we should defer it to the traffic engineer for layouts, not the police, when it comes to the design, if you want parking and auto two-way traffic versus one-way in parking.
All right, well, that's a start, so if that
So,
call us, then we make an appointment and...
I just want to be clear, there was a lot of conversation. What is it that you want to happen from this conversation?
One is to see if Kevin will see if we can't get some of the intersections in the brush cut. Now, 48 Prospect was, and then the corner of High and Daniel Chestnut, the architect, the old Tilton Inn.
Tilton Manor.
Tilton Manor, I'm sorry.
When's the chief come back to us?
Because, I think he was calling for 4 days, so I think, I don't know, yeah.
Can we send a communication from the Board of Selectmen to the Police Department? That we've identified, I don't know how you put it, that we've identified a parking enforcement issue up in that neighborhood. And we have ordinances on the books, and we would like to see them enforced.
Well, it's state law.
Well, including state laws and local ordinances.
They're parking too close to the stop signs.
Well, we can flesh it out at such time as the chief comes around, but there's laws. He's supposed to know the laws.
Okay. So, do you want this, if I heard earlier that it would come from the whole board to sign it, so that would mean we'd wait till next Thursday for you to sign it, or do you want me to send it
I
from
think
me on behalf of you?
Consensus, send it.
Yes, I would send it
On behalf of the Board of Selectmen,
Yes.
you could say.
On behalf of the Board of Selectmen, but I'd like
your
it,
signature.
I personally would like it to go to Sergeant Morrison and the captain as well, because Sergeant is the one that's going to tell the officers, okay, I'd like you to go here today, or here today, or here today, and he's gonna
Yes,
send the officers in the different directions. He's good at that.
please.
I agree.
Okay. All right.
Now, the other part of this is a solution that I think we should be asking, that this needs to come up with a permanent solution, and we should set up a timeline
So it's
for
us-
when we will come up with the solution. It will be,
We tried for months and couldn't get it.
and even if we, at that date, we can say there is no solution.
Well,
Well,
part
let's
of the
have a-
letter to the chief should say, we need your final recommendation on
Why don't we have that conversation with them in person next week?
Have them prepared.
Spell them out
Well,
exactly what we'd like them to do. Let this just take care of these
okay,
things that they can do right now. And, have him hear what, he may already have the solution, he hasn't presented to us, because you're right, he did make a change.
So you want him at next week's meeting?
Yes,
I would say yes,
and
Yes.
give them a heads up what it's about, so you can
and come prepared.
do some research and be prepared for where we're at. If that works.
that's got it.
Anything else from, let's see. You're the last one.
Well,
Anybody want second round?
I just have one more thing. Oh,
What's
I
the-
just have one more thing. There was a notice of violation that was discussed last week, and that has been resolved to the homeowner's benefit.
And
I have a Jeannie question.
Catherine.
Where are we with the possibly bringing the statue up and displaying it on the stage?
The last direction I got from this board was that it wasn't coming up on the stage. You had at one point, and I looked through the minutes, had voted to have the statues come up on the stage. And then, I think 2 meetings ago, I brought forward a request from the gentleman who's working on this, wanting to put up the artwork that goes with it. And the direction I received from this board was that they didn't want to move forward just yet. So it was put off indefinitely.
We want to see what he really has to present.
I thought a part of it was to see how it was going to be held up on the stage structurally, so that it didn't fall
Because I don't
off.
want to sit here and have
Right.
Archimedes or Artemis.
It's part of the discussion.
Diana.
Right, part of the discussion was if it didn't stand up there, would Kevin be able to make some stand that would be able to secure it up there safely? And
Yeah,
that's where
and
we were at.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, I think the conversation started out that it was gonna be done by someone, and then it was asked Kevin to do it, our DPW.
Oh, is John gonna do it?
Well, that was my initial understanding, and then it became, there became a discussion that DPW was going to do it and build the base, and there was some article in the paper saying he was doing it. There's some discussion around that, and it got added to his list, but it was not a priority in terms of what DPW was working on at the time. And so it's been put off, and 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, when I came in front of the board with the request, because they were getting anxious, the Historical Society, they wanted to do all the rest of the stuff, so I'd be ready when Diana went up there. And at that time, the selectmen said, we're not gonna do anything right now.
Ask if Kevin take a look at, I don't know, the offsets are for the structure, 2x4s or whatever they use. They assume they use 2x4s and not 2x6s.
This is not very heavy. You realize how light
It's
this
not
is?
heavy.
I know,
One
but
person
I
can
don't
pick it
want
up
it
with
to be
one arm.
screwed into sheetrock, because that's not gonna hold on a lot, but I'd like him to look at it and figure out, look at the statue and figure out, can he, although he can do most anything it seems, and how would he hold that up there securely? I don't wanna fall it on anybody.
When Kevin was here, he said that he could build the stand for it. And this was back in June.
I don't remember, but
Yeah.
I haven't seen how.
And Kevin said that he would build an adequate stand, and I mean,
But
Stand doesn't necessarily mean
Yeah,
secure, it's just
exactly.
holding it.
let's take a look at the doors that Kevin just built. Those are pretty secure. I think it's.
I would still
if he
like
wants
to know, because ultimately it's gonna be our responsibility, how he's gonna keep it up there. Like Peter said, setting on a stand, you know, that's setting on a stand, but
Listing a bit too.
Yeah, I don't trust that flags. That's
So
not
why
the
don't
way.
we just have-
we
we
work
ask
on
Kevin-
Bird's gonna get
So,
your
so
job.
why don't we just ask
Looking for it.
Jeannie to have a conversation with Kevin, have a conversation with John, and between the between the three of them, they can come up with some ideas so that we can, sooner rather than later, get Diana displayed up here.
yeah, yes.
And I'm happy to do that. Just asking the question in order of priority, in terms of priority things that they're working on. You want this to move to the top of the list?
Oh, drop
No.
everything.
No, but I'd like it to get up there as soon as it can be. It's just deteriorating more and more as long as it stays in the basement.
I don't think it's in the basement, and
Yeah.
it's been there for 40 years, I think, a couple months.
we're in between his.
They're concerned. They are very
We're almost
concerned.
in between
I wanna get
maintenance
moved
and
forward on it.
maintenance.
At least can we
It's not
move it
tight.
out of the basement?
Where do you want it moved to?
Catherine's office.
She doesn't have a head, right? Oh, okay, it won't be creepy.
Will it stand on its own?
Like stand in the corner.
Put her in a corner.
Put her in a chair.
That would be
Right up front.
Okay, what else?
Why don't you ask him when he could?
Catherine, do you have anything else?
No,
Anybody
that's my
else?
only question.
Last call?
The thing that
We had a non-public personnel, technically, it's not non-public, it's, is it or is it not for,
It's not, it doesn't fall under anything I see for non-public personnel. Even if you considered a public employee, which I don't think it is, there's nothing in the criteria, you know.
so we want to plan for next week, have some type of presentation?
Mhm.
We're going to do that, and that's what it's about.
we should have cake.
Who's making it? You?
So that's what it is.
Blueberry pie?
Um,
I will.
Maybe we shouldn't have cake.
Should we invite significant others?
I think that'd be nice.
I think we should invite everybody.
Yep.
It's a celebration of a long-term commitment to the residents and the town, and deserves celebration.
Okay.
Do
Brother,
we have
significant others?
Do we have this list anywhere?
We can give it to you.
Okay.
So it's- we don't need to do non-public.
No, and, what else? Just the certificate?
Hmm.
Okay.
In the press. She'd call Donna Rose, she's always looking for stories.
What about, Jeannie, I could take the responsibility of invites,
Okay.
if you'd like, hopefully. And, so are you making cookies?
Yeah, I can make cookies.
Okay, cookies.
Oreos?
Those are cookies.
I know.
No, not Oreos.
If not, we can order a cake. It's not a big deal. It's just make it special.
I don't know what I can make.
Yeah.
I think we should put onions right after. I think so.
Put it at the end of the night and then we could go to onions. I think that is,
I think that would probably be good.
it's a great idea to do. Wonderful
Anything
idea.
else?
Go ahead. Jeannie's got her hand up.
Just wanted to mention that confirmed today the snow stops have been installed at the senior center.
Really?
Bravo.
Nice.
I had asked Gail today what was the status of that, where they were gonna, set a time, and she followed up with them, and they came back and said, we did it. So it's
Oh,
been done.
Did Kevin or somebody go up and take a look at it? Just double check that.
Yeah, I can ask him to do that.
Just anybody, because just whenever any work's done by a contractor, have
I
somebody
went
go.
by there and didn't look at the roof. Didn't realize they were there.
That should be good.
I'm not gonna sign this. This is really gonna be an argument on my part.
Okay, don't. Let your conscience be your guide.
This really, I'm sorry, it's an employee.
What does it say?
They changed it. I knew I signed one last week.
What does it
It says for
say?
service.
It says for.
Got their own way.
Service, doesn't say she's an employee.
She is an employee.
She's
Yep.
an elected official. I'm not an employee. Are you an employee?
Yes, I am.
All
Yes,
right,
I
you
am.
are.
And
You
I'm an
are.
elected official.
You are,
She is
but
an
that's a
elected
separate
official.
thing.
No,
That's
it
a
isn't.
separate thing.
The Internal Revenue Service recognizes her as an employee
Yep.
of the town of
I'm here
Tilton.
to tell you, it says
She
for
gets a W-2
20 years of
form.
service.
She doesn't get a 1099 miscellaneous income.
Okay,
She gets a
Correct.
W-2 employee.
When you put in your
Okay.
taxes at the end of the year, do you put it in a W-2 form from the town of Tilton?
I do.
Okay,
That I received money from them.
as an employee, and it's employee ID too.
If you got money as a sole proprietor,
I think it's a
you would
stipend,
get a
but
1099 miscellaneous income form. She is an employee who is an
maybe
elected
maybe we
official.
should just have this, we're
Let's
getting
keep it
into,
positive.
You want me?
there's nothing, there's nothing unpositive about that
Yes, it is.
presentation. I don't think there is at all.
Is that it?
Us arguing about it is.
Yeah, I think it's a discredit to service to her to not recognize her as employees, especially when she files the employee manual.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Does she have to follow the manual?
John gets his own wording on that one.
No.
That's disgusting.
Big fun, right, kids?
No.